And welcome to your LinkedIn Live event. My name is Frida Thomas. I am a career coach and I am delighted to be here with my colleague and fellow career coach, Eli Beaumont. Eli, what's up? How are you
What's
doing
up? What's up?
today?
What's up? Doing super well.
I
Excited to be here.
Absolutely, for our second LinkedIn Live event. And today we're going to be talking about dissatisfaction in the career. How does that happen, people? We want to explore this topic, offer you some solutions, get you chatting with us in the chat box so that we can ensure that it is interactive. But before we get into our topic for today, Eli, would you just start us off and give us some highlights of your illustrious career?
Appreciate that. Sure thing. So I'm an international career coach. I've been coaching for the last 8 years, and I've supported thousands of job seekers around the world in navigating life and career transitions. And we we tend to hit the topic of career dissatisfaction quite regularly. So I'm very excited to be able to discuss this today in detail as we touch on the various different aspects that cause individuals to feel this way when they're navigating career transition. Um, it's it's a very common sentiment, which is why we chose this topic today. And I think we're gonna have a lot of really interesting things to share with our audience. Frida, how about you though? Give us the background, give us the
Sure.
experience.
But
But
before I go into me, what I want to share that is so powerful and unique about your experience, Eli. From this is now our second time sharing a coaching platform together. Is every time we gather, I learned something. So I want to invite everybody to really lean in and listen to the specific nuances in terms of perspective that you bring, because I think the richness and in-depthness of the kind of clients you've garnered over the years really informs how you coach. And that's valuable insight. And that's really the whole reason why we're here, right? Is to hopefully empower people, give them an opportunity to learn about things and see things in a completely unique way. So I just wanted to lean into that and just share that first off
oh
too.
man, I appreciate that. And yeah, I mean, this is one way that you and I can make coaching more accessible, right? Is by doing these sessions, giving people the information that we spend a lot of our coaching sessions working with clients one to one on resolving. And yeah, there's going to be quite a lot of great information shared here today.
Yeah,
So
I'm
yeah,
excited. I'm
uh,
excited.
no doubt, no
Yeah.
doubt.
So, about me, I'll go through my certifications really quickly. Recently certified professional coach. I'm a certified professional resume writer. I'm a New York State certified business advisor and recently certified in Energy Leadership Index Master Practitioner. That's a mouthful, folks. I also hold a master's in business, and I have been coaching and counseling entrepreneurs and career professionals, senior managers, directors, VPs for the past years. A lot, a lot of years, folks. And I would say that the thing that I really love about coaching is helping people to see beyond their perspective and to realize that it's possible to have a life that's fulfilling in your career and in your life. And with that, Eli, I want us to just jump right in since you can see the people who have joined us. If you want to give some shout outs to folks, maybe some of the people who are on with us today joined us before. We want to welcome you and invite you to comment, post your comments. We're here to share. We want to hear from you, get your questions so that this is an interactive opportunity.
Yeah, it's perfect, perfect. So if you want to comment in and you have questions for us, you can just post right on LinkedIn or right on YouTube in the chat. Um, and we'll be able to see those comments. We'll bring them up. We'll bring them up for discussion. Um, as of right now, it doesn't show me who's in attendance, but I do know that based on the people who said that they would be attending, we have about 7 or 8 who've signed on now, but I'm sure others will trickle on in as this is a live event. And hopefully, if it's of interest and you find value in this, please tag your friends, share it with your friends. That's why we
Absolutely.
make it available.
Absolutely. I was just about to say the same thing. Send this link to a colleague that you know could benefit from it and share it with someone. So let's talk about why we're here. Why did we come up with this topic? First of all, I took a poll of people who attended the first LinkedIn event, and they said that this was the most top priority for them, trying to discern, why am I unhappy in my job and what can I potentially do about that? So if you're feeling a sense of overwhelmness, maybe you've even thought about leaving your job, you could drop that in the chat. You're like, I'm done. This is the right place for you. We're going to talk about the specific things, the pros and cons of leaving. We're going to talk about what triggers people to start feeling dissatisfied. And we're also going to explore what you can do to start addressing moving your career through a trajectory. And with that, Eli, I want to just start with one of your questions that you offered up for today, which is, what are some of the most common signs that a person is disengaged or feeling some signs of career dissatisfaction?
Okay. I mean, the one that comes up the most is this Sunday scaries, right? You are approaching the weekend. Friday is hype. You're excited about it. The weekend's coming up. Saturday isn't as good as it could be because Sunday's looming, right?
Mm,
And if you found yourself in this position where you're like, one more day until Sunday, oh man, one more day until this, I got to start this all over again, right? And if
mm,
you have a fear or this general malaise as it relates to the work that you're actively doing or going to be involved in the next week, that's a pretty good introductory sign. But it starts getting worse when you start experiencing this same type of anxiety or like a deeper anxiety, either like right here in your like near the sternum and the chest, constant thoughts that keep you up at night, and you start feeling a sense of stress early, first thing in the morning, and you just feel like you want to cry sometimes.
mm.
And I have a lot of clients who felt this way before going into work, and yet they would stomach through, they push through, and they do this for years, right? And that takes a toll. Um, Another way this manifests is total opposite. It's this perfectionism and that leads to burnout, right? You're like, okay, I
Mm,
need to keep showing up. I have no time. I'm always busy. My calendar's always packed. It's meeting after meeting after meeting. And you're looking to the weekend and you're just going to get back into it. And you just keep this cycle going, and you've kept it going for quite some time. And the minute you give yourself that chance to breathe is the minute it all just falls apart,
yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah,
So those are two things personally for individuals that you could be looking out for. Is just this general discontent. It's not enough to be like, oh well, my manager is like really doesn't hear me, or like whatever. Some of the other key pieces that you could look out for that are more cultural. It's that you'll feel it inside of yourself, right?
yeah,
And you'll start to kind of see certain behaviors that become consistent week over week that are clues that something's wrong, but it's very easy to just sometimes avoid these or put off looking into what those feelings are. Have
yeah.
you seen, or maybe there are some other things that you've seen from
Yeah,
that?
there are some others, but I just want to add to what you said. Think about the trajectory of that feeling, right? So it could have started off on Saturday, just some resistance and hesitation. And over the years, it could turn into something physical,
Yeah.
right?
Mm,
It could turn into like a twitch in your shoulder. And what I want our audience to be aware of is dissatisfaction has weight. And I mean, that's just a general life principle. If
Mhm.
we're not dealing with the things that cause us to feel less than happy, it can help start deteriorating ourselves. We can start to actually physically feel the manifestation of being less than satisfied. And I see here Ravindra says, I hope I'm pronouncing it right. Ravindra, feeling demotivated, usually being on time, now being late. Oh boy, that's a big one. Not excited about the job again are all signs of general discontent. Absolutely, Ravindra. And what I would offer to you is, and we're going to deep dive into solutions, but I would offer to you in this moment, what is that costing you? How is that impacting your relationships and how you show up in the world?
That's so good. That's so good. I mean, if any of us have like partners at home and, we show up and, oh, the first thing we want to do is just complain about our work day, and our partners, you just kind of see like this, okay, again, like do something about it, right? I have a lot of clients who do this. I mean, I've been in that situation. My partner has been in that situation, and it's very it's very interesting to kind of see how this affects relationship dynamics. What you talk about with your friends when you're out talking about work, maybe you just disassociate from bringing things up. They're like, "Hey, like, what's going on with work?" Nah, skip me. Like,
Yes,
uh,
yes,
right? And you don't get excited to tell anyone about what you do anymore, right? And
yes,
that's
yes.
also a pretty good sign.
Yep. And I'll share some of the things my clients have said when my best friend says to me, you know, in the last month, at least 5 times you told me how much you dislike your job. So that's just some truth talk, folks. When you've got the people around you who can mirror you and can give it back to you how you're showing up, take heed, because that's probably a good sign that these are areas in your life, in your career, and in your who, right? And in
Mhm.
your why that you might want to address. Before we get into the problem solving, I want to offer to you all to think about these things in terms of how you can avert reacting like, I'm just going to quit my job because I'm unhappy. What will your career and life look like if you don't change? Think about that first, right? What are the benefits and the non benefits of staying where you are? What do you need to overcome in order to pursue new work, a new advancement where you are? Is it fear of the unknown?
Mhm.
Is it assumptions, beliefs, interpretations about the situation? Is it possibly that you need to improve on your skills? I want to offer those things to you all. And also, tell the truth to yourself about yourself. That's a quote by Iyanla Van Zant about what's really going on. Because oftentimes we'll throw the honest, oh, my manager is just a bad boss. But were we to step back and take what is known as the balcony perspective, that third eye, where we
Mhm.
get off the floor and try to look at things from an objective situation, we might see our work environment and ourselves within that environment in a completely different way. And Eli, what say you as I read Alice's good point, wanting to share what you do as an indicator of how you feel about your job. But what say you about the considerations before you start thinking about jumping ship?
Mm. That's so important because most of the time there might be something that someone can do or it's something that you can take control of internally to maybe salvage a job. Maybe you like the work, maybe you like the mission of your organization, but really it's uncaring leaders, right? Or leadership problem, or an inability to really feel heard or be heard, right? So I think McKinsey recently did this study back in Q1 of this year, and the main reason most people are leaving their jobs is because of uncaring leaders, or not
Mhm.
feeling heard, or not feeling like there's career development opportunity within their existing role. So something that I work on with individuals before they consider making a transition is it a problem of the organization or the team that you're on? And is there a way for you to create the space to have hard conversations or create the space for feedback, even if you feel like in the past that space hasn't been created? Can you be the one to create it? Can we utilize mechanisms around structuring these conversations in a way with your leadership team or with your direct manager or with the team that you oversee to see if you can move the needle to help build culture or rewire the culture? Most people feel like, oh, I can't do anything about it. But have you tried? Have you had
Mhm.
a hard conversation? Have you stepped into like this, oh, I don't want to upset my manager. I don't want to have them have a reaction. Well, do they know that they are having a reaction? Like that you
Mhm.
feel like they're having a reaction, that how it
Mhm.
makes you feel, right? And really leaning into the I feel messaging when you're giving that feedback and really creating the space for that feedback with the individuals on your team that may be causing certain aspects of this dissatisfaction. Because if you really like, I was talking to someone the other day, they really like where they're at. They spend a lot of time working there, but and now they feel like they're being pushed out because two individuals are making it an unenjoyable place to work. But
Mm.
they're like, why should I leave after I spend
Exactly.
so much time here when it's others who are making this an unenjoyable place now?
Sure.
So how can I step in and feel empowered to have these conversations to see if I can salvage this, or maybe even create a different role for myself within the organization that gets me out of this team
Yeah.
and doing something else. So I'll just add that in as a consideration.
And when they come to you with those concerns, do you have any kind of tools or exercises you're going through with them to help them start to identify how they can salvage those relationships?
Well, for asking just the general, like, really, every situation is going to be different, right? So an
Sure.
individual might come in and they'll be like, listen, like, I've tried with my manager before. There's no solving this. It's just like, I'm not going to be heard. It's always like gets escalated. I always get gaslit, thrown under the bus, or whatever else, right?
Yeah.
So sometimes it's not worth it, right? And it makes
Yeah.
sense to look elsewhere. But
Sure.
other times where, if they haven't taken this approach before, you can. What I always suggest is there's this framework that I learned from my time with this cool company called Project Activate. Is this concept of a clearing conversation,
Mhm.
and it would effectively start by first setting the expectation that there's going to be feedback, right? Getting
Mhm.
permission from the other person and
Mhm.
saying, hey, I'd like to structure some time for us to just get together and talk. I'd like to share a bit of feedback based on how I've been feeling. And I'm going to open up. I'd love to hear your feedback as well after I share what I'm going to share. Would that be okay? All of a sudden, the guard comes down, you get the approval, then you're able to open up. You can address the situation at hand. You can then share some of that I feel messaging. Well, when X happens, it makes me feel like I'm not heard. I feel like I can't speak up. I feel that even though I do my best to showcase a lot of value, it's always um, overlooked, right? Whatever it may be, right? And then you want to give a few examples. So, what are a few occasions in which validate the feelings that you've had? And then you create the space for the individual to share their perspective on that situation, which ultimately should open up the door to vulnerable communication and conversation. Does it always work? It just depends how ready the other person is to uh, be receptive to what you have to say. And you want to time it pretty well. Definitely not when it's like high
Okay.
stress and like end of quarter and you have all these goals to meet or whatever
Sure.
it is, right? So
Sure.
you want to time the conversation well, but um, a majority of the time, my clients and the people that have used this framework have found it to be quite successful. And it's not just something you can use at work. You can use this in your relationships at home. You can use it with your children. You can use it with your partner. You can use it with your parents. If there has been a riff, right? Because you're really clearing the air through this, and you're doing it in a way that really allows you to express your feelings, which is something a lot of us don't know how to do. And
Right.
I'm terrible at it. I thought I was better at it, but I am finding from my partner and my therapist that I have some work to do. So so
I
it's hard. It's hard stuff.
Yeah, relating to humans is difficult. And I think that's so powerful to have this moment while we're having a live event to just say that out loud. Relating to human beings can be challenging. However, hopefully today you can walk away with some tips and some tools that can empower you and make it and start making a shift. So if anyone has any thoughts you want to share about what we've talked about, maybe you've considered leaving and there's a specific nuance at work you'd like us to talk about, drop us a comment in the chat
Yeah,
box so
yeah.
we can go ahead and think about that. One of the other questions that you brought up, Eli, that I want to address is understanding your purpose. What is your why? Why did you take that job in the first place? Was right? Was
It's
it
like, oh, don't ask me that. I can't answer that.
was it because you had had 5 rejections and you felt like you'd never get another
Mm,
opportunity? Was it because you read something about the organization and you identified with it? Was it you just needed a paycheck, right?
yeah.
And be honest with yourselves. If those were the kind of decisions you were making, no wonder you're feeling dissatisfied because it takes time to figure out the rigors of the kind of company you want to work with, what matters to you, projects, location, and all of those things. I'll share with you all that I have a client, I was coaching and advising her, and I'm in New York. You are too, right, Eli?
Yes.
And she was like, I do not want to work in the Bronx. I do not want to work in the Bronx. I do not want to work in the Bronx. Guess what, folks? She went and took a job in the Bronx. All right. And while I had her create a job description where she identified the geographic locations, the skills she needed, the kind of project she wanted to work on, the kind of work environment she wanted, the salary, we went through all of those things, and yet the one of the major things that was essential to her was not having to have an hour and a half commute. She let it go
Mm.
and is less than happy now because she's spending half of her day commuting back and forth to work. So I want to say to you all, be clear about your why. Why am I here? How did I end up here? And Eli, I'd love to hear your thoughts about that since that was one of your questions.
This is this is tough, right? You bring this up with clients, and it's like, what's your life purpose? What's the meaning of life for you, right? And those are big philosophical questions, but there are other questions we can ask to give us clues. One is, what problem in the world do you want to contribute to solving in your lifetime?
Mm,
And really thinking about a cause that gets you worked up, riled up, something not something small that you can solve, something that you can contribute to solving eventually, right? But in your lifetime, it's probably not going to happen because the cause is bigger than yourself, right? And this is a very interesting thing or an interesting question to take into consideration when you start thinking about your why. Um, because you almost want your why to be something that you become obsessed with. Uh, like with coaching and education, that's my obsession, right? I love this work. And I know that I want to
me
reform
too.
education, right? It's
Yeah,
like we have our own classroom here, Frida. We have a classroom virtually, and we're talking about career transition work, stuff that we're not taught in school,
yeah.
stuff that people at work don't really want us to bring up because what if they leave? What if this? What if that? we have to talk about this stuff. Someone needs to, right? We've all
Yeah.
felt the way that a lot of us feel when we're dissatisfied in our career, and we don't know why.
Yeah.
So it's important to ask some of the bigger questions to really identify purpose statements. And it looks like we have a few questions here
Okay.
as well. So here's one from Maria Victoria. Uh, Maria is actually a former student of mine at
Oh,
this business
nice.
school in London, right? So
Hi,
she asks,
Maria. Welcome,
yes,
welcome, welcome.
how to handle the disappointment of knowing you won't grow where you are, but you like the team.
And isn't that unique? That's one of your questions too, right?
Hmm. Well,
Yeah.
Frida,
You go first, dear.
no, 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 no. You give it a shot. I feel like I've been
Oh,
talking too much.
no, I told you you're a good teacher. I learned. I wouldn't be taking notes, but that's kind of rude, right? All of these opportunities are to learn, and it would be silly if I didn't take advantage of your knowledge so I can build on mine. Maria, what I would offer to you is to think about what is the value of staying versus the value of leaving, given how much you like your team. And you could literally like create a chart, the pros and cons, and give them a weight, a scale of
Mhm.
1 to 10. And then whatever you see there, Maria, allow that to be your truth. Because oftentimes we'll go through this kind of analysis, but our heart is pulling at us, right? Because we've got some attachments. So whatever you see, it is being realized and revealed in that situation. And I'll add this, since you know Eli, that might be an opportunity for coaching, right? So once you've done that kind of evaluation and assessment, perhaps the outcomes are not what you'd want it to be or look like, even though that be the truth. That's an opportunity for you to explore what's really going on here, right? I'm disappointment. I'm disappointed, but I like my team. And the value that I see here is making me uncomfortable about what I value. And I want to go back to, thank you so much for that question, Maria. I want to go back to what you were saying, Eli, about the why, because I think there's such richness in these conversations when we can continue them.
Yes.
Think about, if you're like, I don't know what my why is, I don't know. Think about the projects you worked on where you felt like you really mattered and what you were able to contribute. You saw the value of it, right? And it could have been exposure to new technology. It could have been exposure to a new process that made you feel like, wow, just having access to that kind of information and resources could really change things for me, right? And start exploring those things. If you don't already have a LinkedIn account, I mean, premium account, you can sign up for LinkedIn Premium and take courses on LinkedIn from everything to from A to Zen. I have a course there. There are over 15,000 courses, project management, leadership, learning how to manage people, dealing with difficult bosses, right? Learning how to streamline your work, getting along with your colleagues. It's not all just skill related, even though there are many courses that can help you advance in your skills. Eli, what else? What other wisdom do you have for us?
I think we can definitely lean into things that we've done well, right? But an added layer to think about there is, did I enjoy the process of bringing this achievement to fruition, right? Because most of the time, we'll lean into things that we do well, and sure, others may be proud of us, but this aspect of like enjoying the task at hand can sometimes be totally opposite of, like, we might still do something well, but we might not fully enjoy it. I
Mhm.
remember I use this story sometimes when I'm doing some exercise with clients. But I remember being a management consultant, right? And I worked on this project. It was a memorable one because it was basically working with the U.S. Department of Agriculture in resolving $100 million of taxpayer money that was being paid improperly to farmers who'd been deceased,
Mhm.
and or companies that were debarred from doing business.
Ooh, that's no good.
Oh, it's all good. Companies that were debarred from doing business with the government. So it was a cool role, something I could be proud of, right? Because we'd be saving taxpayer dollars. It was something that I knew I could do well because at the time I had focused a lot of my time on data management and like pulling in data together. But I would say, did I enjoy it? Now, did I enjoy living in DC, getting on the metro in the middle of summer with my suit, and then getting there, sweating in this metro,
Oh, yeah.
going into a building that was designed by a prison architect, mind you,
Mhm.
and you're getting scanned for weapons, right, and guns, and there were shootings that happened like not too far away. You go in, the colors are beige and gray, and you start working your way to your cubicle where you're just getting ready for a few meetings, but really open your computer. I'm in databases all day. And then when I'm not, I'm meeting with people who don't really want to be there and don't
Mhm.
really care.
Oh,
Right. And at the end of the day, like, sure, we actually ended up saving $80 million going forward, right? With the new strategy that we put in place and the new programs we put in place. We were able to do it on time and on budget, but did I enjoy myself?
yeah.
I didn't, but we get so caught up in like, well, I do it well, so I guess this is something I need to keep doing, and that's not the case. I mean, shoot, I didn't get the chance to do this. Like, I made a decision that I wanted to switch it up, and I wanted to help people one on one. I wanted to help people individually in workshop settings. I wanted to be an educator of sorts, but not take a formal path to education. So you can shift a lot of things if you set your mind to it and you start taking a look at the clues within the things that you actually enjoy. And the thing is, it doesn't have to be at work. It could be in every aspect of your life.
Yeah.
So that's another good question to ask yourself, like, well, what gives me energy? Like, what
Yeah.
do I enjoy doing? What gives me energy? And start using those ideas as clues to look at, what other jobs allow me to do those things that give me energy while I do these other things.
Yeah, yeah. And so, what I heard is the big takeaway for us with that, folks, is pay attention, right? Stand up and pay attention. If you're wearing a suit and you're feeling sweaty and you got to stay with that when you get to work, and that's less than comforting for you, you might want to examine that, right?
100%.
And figure out what really, really brings you joy. I think we are truly blessed, Eli, to have the kind of life and lifestyle and work that feeds our soul.
Mm,
And I really want to encourage everyone who's with us today to think about what is it that really feeds me? What is it that inspires me on Sunday to be excited about going in on Monday, right? That would be my desire, and that would be my wish for everyone. We're well over our time, but so I want us to get into some solutions, Eli, in terms of how we can help people think about, okay, I'm feeling dissatisfied. What can I do about it? Or should I do anything about it? And I would offer this: consider what you would like for your life to look like 12 months, 24 months from now. Consider the steps and strategies you need to take in order to live the authentic life that you desire, in order to have your life feel fulfilled, not even just at work, but as we've said before, what you do at work, you bring those things home, right? So
yeah.
you may as well try to figure out how you can integrate them and just bring more joy into your life. And once you've come up with that list of things, I want you to create an action plan where you're thinking about 6 months from now, if I want this thing to happen, what should I be doing between now and the 6 month? Monthly, what should I be doing? weekly, daily, what would that look like to help me move towards that pot of gold that I'm looking to achieve? And while you're taking that trajectory, set some accountability, create your timeline. You might check in with a coach, be it Eli, myself, or someone else to help you maintain the strength to keep the focus to do something other than what you're doing right now so that you can actually realize satisfaction, joy, enthusiasm. Let's hear it for some enthusiasm in
Yeah.
here, right? Not just going in to make the donuts every day.
Oh man.
What do you say, Eli?
I mean, I like that because I think you can see growth in 1% changes on a daily basis, right? Small things every day, small actions around these larger goals, like Frida mentioned, within 12 to 24 months will get you to the final destination. And in order to, like, if that's too slow of a pace, you can pick it up. You could do a bit more. But if you are so burnt out and you don't know how to make the time, even just going on and just starting to explore what else is out there on LinkedIn, checking out those jobs, but not giving your, don't go into the qualifications. Don't start going down this I'm not enough mentality. Oh, they're looking for
Mm,
this. I'll never be able to change. Who will hire me? That's a pity party that you're throwing for yourselves that is not doing you any favors, right? Because at the end of the day, you need to look at things with curiosity and empathy for yourself. And I will say the biggest thing that someone could start doing is just being kind to themselves in this process,
mm,
understanding how you feel and giving yourself some love and being
mm,
like, wow, like you do a lot and you're not appreciated the way you should. And that doesn't mean that you're not good at your work. It's just that they don't see the value that you bring. I bring a lot of value. I am actually really smart, I'm intelligent, I'm powerful, I'm capable, right? And you start talking in this way, then you can start looking at things because you're coming from a place of strength and more confidence. Because what stops people from moving forward is they don't feel confident,
yeah.
right? And if you can start being your own advocate and start building that innate confidence within yourself, then you can start to take strides at looking at things that might be a little bit outside of scope, but that's okay. I'm a quick learner. I can learn pretty fast. Being curious about, oh, I wonder what other people are doing there. How did they do it? They made a transition, not comparing yourself to what they have and what you don't, but how did they do it? Right? It's this whole idea of just leading with confidence and curiosity and empathy for yourself that's going to shift the whole thing up here for you when it comes to making a transition or getting out of the space that you're in, because most people feel stuck because they don't believe in themselves.
Yeah. Yeah. That's good
So,
stuff there,
yeah.
Eli. That's good. That's good. And what really resonates for me, and I want to invite everyone, place those chats in, right?
Oh, yeah.
Place those comments in the chat. What I want to say to you all as well is think about your success in the past. Make a list of the accomplishments that you've had. I think you would probably be overwhelmed because that's evidence that if you did it before, you can do it again. Also, let's talk the truth of the reality. Sometimes it's time to leave. If you're facing overt racism, sexism, all the other isms that are
Yeah.
out there, and it's impacting your day to day capacity to just get through, it might be time for psychotherapy, right? And those are the instances where I would ask you to carefully evaluate, can you sustain yourself when you're basically subjecting yourself to abuse? And we know it to be true that some of these work environments are abusive and toxic,
Oh, yeah.
right?
Oh,
And
yeah.
not to be sustainable. You know, it's true. Having a paycheck is very important, but you can have a paycheck at a place where people value you,
Yeah.
right? And
Oh, yeah.
honor you. And Adnan says, in which conditions one should tell I am done with this job? Yeah. Um, I'll lean in first, Eli, and I'm glad to
Sure.
hear your perspective. If you've been to the doctor and you're borderline ulcers and you can contribute it to work, if leading up to Monday, you have chronic illnesses in terms of insomnia, if you have dreaded having meetings with your direct reports, your senior manager, to the point you've actually thought about not showing up, those are some of the instances where you might want to ask yourself, can I do better than this? And what is the cost? Eli, what
Yeah.
say you?
I mean, you covered that pretty well. I think anything that is like causing you mental or physical distress is enough. I will say that something that you said earlier, Frida, is around a paycheck, right? I've been working with a lot of individuals who've been able to one utilize short-term disability. You meet with a therapist that you get them to sign off on the fact that hey, I need a mental health break, right? And from there, you're able to one advocate, go to HR. You're able to then take advantage of long-term sick leave. You take advantage of disability. The company will pay a little bit. You actually won't lose much of your pay over the time when you take that time for yourself to heal and honestly just focus on healing because you can't go from burnout to high performance again. You can't go burnout and like, let me look for another job. I need to do all this. You need to actually take the time to work with a therapist, figure out what's going on, get to an equilibrium, and take not just 1 month, take 2 months, take three if you can afford to do so. But that's why we pay in to disability, right?
Right.
That's why we pay into this stuff, and it's like, oh, but what will my colleagues say? They don't need to know. They don't need to know. You talk with HR, and then you do what you need to do. And if your colleagues are gonna not respect that, then that's a terrible workplace in the first place, right? And I bet you they actually feel the same way, and they'll learn from your example, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's a lot that you can do actually to give yourself a bit more bandwidth and space to recover and heal from an environment that has you feeling so dissatisfied that it affects your mental and physical health. And once you're at that equilibrium point, you'll be able to really transition out. I know that's not really giving a condition, but it's more so just kind of sharing something I've seen work really well for individuals who are looking for a bit of downtime to like rethink things and equalize.
Yeah. And I'll add to that. I know you mentioned working with a lot of educators. One of my neighbors I just ran into, she's a teacher, maybe 13 years. And for the last 2 years, she had been talking about being so unhappy at work. And then with COVID, it was just compounded. And when I ran into her the other day, she told me she's taking an administrative leave, Eli,
Mm,
for a year. And
mm,
I just applauded her. So they'll cover half of her because she's fully vested, right? And the rest of it, she'd saved money. And she's like, I'm just going to take this time for reflection. How powerful would it be were many of us to take the onus of care? We're talking about self care,
yeah,
folks, right? We're not talking about something ethereal, something like going out and buying a Lamborghini. We're talking about the things that truly impact our lives. And hi, Tita. Thanks so much for joining us. Very useful suggestions. But what if I hear your suggestions, but I can't do them on my own? How does a coach help people turn these suggestions into action? Eli, you first.
so I mean, it's a great question,
It
right?
is.
Most of us try to do these things on our own, but it's kind of like the same, like when you work for someone else, you feel like you have to work 12 hours a day. You're like pushing yourself. You really feel like you're letting someone else, not letting them down, but you're letting your team down to a certain extent if you don't show up and do the work, right? A coach isn't going to be as toxic as that, but it's the same kind of idea, right? It's this accountability partner who's going to, one, help you really focus one to one on your specific challenges and really highlighting what those challenges are, not just at the surface level, but add a few layers in to what's really behind this challenge, right? And once we get clear on that, we're able to start figuring out ways to set actions and goals around this challenge. Not telling you exactly. We can, right? We can wear the consulting hat, we can wear the coaching hat, we can wear the cheerleader hat, we can wear the educator hat, we can wear many hats. But really, our goal is to help you come up with these solutions and take action on them and hold you accountable to these things while also acting as sounding boards. Because if your ego or this inner critic in your head is giving its voice, we're going to be able to pick that up and be like, that's not you. Did you hear what you just said? This is what's coming through. Is that what you wanted to come through? And
Yeah.
it's basically, we're sounding boards, right? But we're sounding boards that actually listen. We don't wait to tell you what we're thinking. We're here actively listening, hearing you, regurgitating this information, and then giving you the space to process and set goals around the things that need to change. So that's, in my opinion, that's where coaches really offer the most value. Much like you might have a coach on a sports team, we're going to have the tools, the guidance, the support systems, the knowledge, but most of all, we're just going to hold space for you, because it's unfortunate, but not that many people hold space for us in our lives, Frida.
It's true. It's so true. And it's also true that it is a rare thing where we can sit with someone for an hour and just be heard. And that's the other thing that your coach can do, is allow you to feel validated, acknowledged, and heard. And Eli, I don't really have anything to add to that. I think you summed up our job pretty well. And Tita knows she can reach out to me for a complimentary coaching session, and anyone else who's on the call today. So I think that's a good place to put a period or a semicolon into it. Eli, it is always a delight to share in this platform with you. I want to invite everyone who was so gracious to join us to feel free to look us up on LinkedIn and connect with us. I provide a 30-minute complimentary coaching session. You can DM me directly on LinkedIn and request that. And I would offer, Eli, if you got any parting words before we wrap up today.
This was just fun. It's important
Yes.
to it's important to talk about these topics. A lot of us are feeling dissatisfied. That's why there's been so much attrition, the most we've ever seen in the United States over the course of the last 2 years. And people are fed up. They're not willing to take it anymore. Yet at the same time, it's important that we know what we're going to be doing afterwards, right? So
Absolutely.
much like Frida suggested, connect with us on LinkedIn, book that time. Let's talk about it and see what we can do to kind of help you move things forward.
This is your time, people. This is your opportunity. Make the most of it. So I want to wish you all a great remainder of the Thursday. Thank you so much for spending the last 50 minutes with us. Hope to see you again soon.
All right. Take care, everyone.
Okay, bye bye.